Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Working in Hockey podcast. I'm your host, Nick Bones, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Jordan Henry, currently the Senior Manager, Video and Digital Content at the Ontario Hockey League. Jordan, the season's back in full swing. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. The beginning of the season's always a busy time for us here at the OHL, but we're just wrapping up week one, and week two is around the corner, and it'll get easier as the season goes on, and just really excited to have it back.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it feels good to be back. Feels normal, like we're back to normal life here with hockey back on TV. And some of the draft eligible players in the OHL have had quite the start to the first week or two here, which has been awesome to see. I think there's so many exciting players around the league, but we can save that conversation for another day. I want to talk about you, Jordan. I want to talk about your role working with video and digital content with the league. Give people kind of an overview of your role, how you got into it, and what your day-to-day entails.
Yeah, I mean, I was I didn't grow up in Ontario. I grew up in British Columbia, so obviously very familiar with Canadian major junior hockey, but not somebody who works in this league that has, memories of going to Kitchener Rangers games or London Knights games or Oshawa Generals games growing up in the GTA, like a lot of people who work in our league do. I remember, I grew up in Victoria. We didn't get a Western Hockey League team until I was in middle school. Went to a handful of Victoria Royals games and obviously new friends and players much better than myself that ended up, getting a look in the Western Hockey League. But didn't really have a deep connection to the OHL in any way. Then had an opportunity to start working with the league. After I graduated, I was at Ryerson University's Radio and Television Arts Sport Media program, now Toronto Metropolitan University. Graduated from there in 2018, started with the league in 18-19. Was just a contract coordinator role to try something out for a year. I'd freelanced for a little while before I hopped on with the league, and then got an opportunity to try out the contract role. And then from there, worked through season one, and then liked how things went. And then they came back to me after the first summer off and offered something a little more permanent, a little bit full time into 1920. So I've been with the league since 18-19, but in my kind of current structure as a full time OHL employee, as I was a CHL/OHL employee contracted when I started since 1920. Every week's a little bit different, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm still working for the league. It's one of my favorite things is that no 2 weeks are the exact same, which is something I really enjoy. Beginning of the season is just data management, preparation, making sure. I like to look at what we do at the league as not servicing the Ontario Hockey League, but instead servicing the 20 clubs across the OHL and making sure that they've got all the tools to be successful in a given week. So it could be as simple as, making sure our media list has headshots and pronunciations and logos and animations and all of those elements, but then making sure the league has elements to play on video boards, as well as making sure National Hockey League clubs have access to everything they need for their prospects as the season goes along. There's a lot of ways that it works. You meet a lot of people. My hands in a lot of places. I'd say I go about an inch thick and a mile wide across everything. I'm not a graphics mastermind. I'm not a video mastermind. I'm not a Twitter mastermind or a social captions or TikTok or Instagram, but I think I can get a little bit everywhere and cover a wide space of all the digital content spaces, not just on OHL channels, but on team channels as well, and servicing media and other clubs and everyone across the world of hockey. So it's been a fun few years working for the O.
No, that's awesome. And I think that's a great overview. And I think super interesting what you said there about kind of being an inch deep, a mile wide. I think that's pretty common with junior hockey teams, college teams, to be kind of that jack of all trades, having some general skills as opposed to being super specialized in one area. I think that's something that I try to dive into in a lot of these episodes, and really helps people kind of build their careers, build their resumes, build their skills up, right? Talk to me about the benefits of being able to dip your toes into so many different things and kind of build out your professional experiences that way.
Oh, I'm a much better employee from the day I started with the league. I've been able to learn on the job, which I think is something that gelled really well with me. Just being able to try out new things. I don't know if you were to talk to me at the end of each season. I don't know if my focus at the end of each season that I've been with the OHL has been the same year over year. I kind of get to try a little something here, try a little something there. I've got a couple of projects that are floating up in the head right now that I might get to as the year goes on, or I might get pulled in a different direction or go a different way. So I think the ability to learn on the job in junior hockey is, one of the benefits. And I think so many followers of yours are, when you're looking at the Working in Hockey page, it's trying to really get into a job in hockey, and it's people that love it. And I can't say enough good things about working in junior hockey, not just in the province of Ontario or the state of Michigan or Pennsylvania, but across the Western Hockey League and across the QMJHL as well. I mean, there are 60 clubs across Canada and the United States, and I think that there are great opportunities as the digital space continues to grow and the business model continues to grow for junior hockey. And there's more responsibilities every year, but I think that's good because it allows employees to get their hands into new spaces year over year and add new skills.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. Some of my favorite hockey memories are working with the Attack in the OHL. There, I think, like you said, just being able to touch so many different elements. One day is completely different than the next day, even though you had a game both days, right? So being able to just pick up all those different experiences and kind of compound the learnings from them was awesome. And sounds like you get to do a lot of that. I'm curious on the content side of things, Jordan. Content's always evolving. There's always new trends. There's always new patterns. There's always new ways to go about it, especially with video these days on social media. How do you go about planning for the season, lining your things up in advance versus reacting to some trends, reacting to what other NHL teams might be doing, or you see a team in the dub doing something a little bit different? How do you kind of balance that planning in advance versus reactionary to the world of content?
I think a big part of what we try and do, the nice thing about working in hockey is there's a proper off season to all of it. And a part of that isn't just getting out and enjoying golfing and hanging out all the time throughout the summer, but there is some thinking, some modeling. And I mean, if you look at just different things you'll learn year over year, there's so many analytics tools you can look at now. And I think one thing that I've tried to get really good at is getting contact points at your metas and your Instagrams and your Twitters and your TikToks, trying to talk to the people that work for all of these different
Yeah.
platforms, because they're going to know what they're looking to promote as a part of their algorithm. I know there's an algorithm that promotes certain kinds of content. I can't tell you in any given week what they're pushing. So there's strategies and looking back at what we did. I mean, if you look at our Instagram page last year, you'll see a bunch of square posts. If you look at our Instagram page this year, for example, I'm hoping to see very limited square posts. You learn new things, you try new stuff. The nice thing about my role is I've got a lot of contacts at team levels, as far as the NHL and down low at teams in our league, but also there's a version of me in my digital content role at the Western League and the Quebec League as well, and we talk endlessly about, I tried this and it was a huge hit. I spent a lot of time on this and it kind of flopped, and then we repackaged it like this and then it worked. Like, when I'm working in this digital content space, I'm kind of on the older side of the spectrum working in junior hockey. I find, like, I'm into my 30s now, and I find that I'm trying to keep up on things. But I mean, the reason you and I got connected, we're bringing in new roles every year. You're bringing in young people that are they're up to speed on, like, I don't have a personal TikTok account. I have the league account on my phone. That's how I engage with TikTok. So I try and keep up on these things, but surrounding yourself with people in any job that can help you grow, help you learn in any given day is a great piece of advice, because it's helped me, keep up to date on things and keep up to date on strategies and come together with a plan every summer that will put you in a place where you can hopefully be successful heading into each season.
Absolutely. No, I think that's great insights. And one other thing that I wanted to touch on that's obviously unique with junior hockey and always a talking point is players are only there for a set number of years, right? It's not like the NHL where you draft a kid at 18 and you hope that he's going to be there for the next 20 years for the franchise, and you can make him the face of your 2036 marketing campaign if you want, because you're banking on him being there. Talk to me a little bit about, if anything here, the importance of making sure you cover and showcase guys while they're there. Some guys, they blossom at 17 and then they're drafted by 18 and they might be out of the league by 19. Talk to me about, again, if anything there, how you guys plan for maybe showcasing a Michael Misa or a Porter Martone or these different guys that their stays in the league might not be as long as others.
There's essentially two approaches that are working concurrently. I mean, when you're working with teams, I think you're selling in two different ways. I think your average Oshawa Generals fan is going to be an Oshawa Generals fan regardless of who's on the team, regardless of team success. They're so intertwined in the community, and that's something I've really learned in my role is how important these junior teams are as I've worked in the league over and over and over for all these years. But part of that too is working in the league and trying to market star players as they're in a rookie year, in a draft eligible season, drafted into the NHL, playing another year or two in the league, and then out. I think trying to make fans aware in markets a star player or two on every team so that when they're thinking, do I want to go to the Oshawa Generals game tonight? They're playing the Windsor Spitfires. And then for a second you stop and you're like, oh, Windsor, they've got Liam Greentree, who was just drafted by the LA Kings, and they've got the first overall pick from last year in Ethan Belchetz. That's two players that I would have some major interest in going to see. So in marketing star players of teams that are NHL affiliated or going to be NHL affiliated in the next few years, I think you're really appealing to try and make these players and make the visiting teams important to fans inside their markets to go and see. When it comes to trying to tell stories at the league level, the Canadian Hockey League does a really good job trying to create national events, and us at the OHL at creating big events to try and sell these players. Obviously, the Kubota CHL NHL Top Prospects game shifting in structure a little bit this year, and now it's a Canada USA Challenge that will happen in November, happening in two OHL markets in Oshawa and London. And a big part of that, obviously, the game is a big part. Was always a big part of a marketing strategy when it came to our OHL players at the event, even when it was just the Top Prospects game. But a big part of that too is it gives us an opportunity to have a proper media car wash, sit down with players, create some storytelling pieces. While at the team level, you're surrounded by your players every day and they're accessible to you. At the league level, I've got to travel to go get access to a player. If I'm traveling to go see a player, it's probably a game day. They're probably not going to sit down and answer questions for 10, 15 minutes because they're part of their whole pregame game day ritual and everything. So creating these national events, I mean, we'll have an opportunity with all the draft eligibles in November with the CHL event in Oshawa and London. And then coming up in the new year, we've got an announcement on the horizon about an OHL Top Prospects event to really filter in the players that aren't captured in that one team CHL and really give us an opportunity to grab all of this content that's going to come from OHL players and then spend the next few months after that telling their stories, getting people excited as we work our way towards the OHL playoffs and through that to the Memorial Cup and out of that to the NHL draft.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and I think those marquee events are going to be very exciting this year, and definitely excited as a fan of the game more than anything to see what you and the team are able to churn out there as we get closer to those in London and Oshawa this year. Last one for me on your current role there, Jordan. You touched on travel and going to see these players. I know we talked a little bit offline about it, but give people a peek behind the curtain at kind of what your travel is like during the season. How often are you having to get up and over to the Soo versus down to Windsor to out to Peterborough for a celebration or a different event?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do, especially in the first half of the season, is I am more central to Toronto and the GTA area a lot more. Obviously, special events will pull you out where the league wants to have a presence. Example, I was on the ground in Saginaw for their banner raising a couple of days ago for the beginning of our season, and then we had boots on the ground the other night in London for their banner raising in the season opening. You'll find events, as the season goes along that are worthwhile for you to go to. I look at things like Joe Thornton's banner raising and jersey retirement last year in Sault Ste. Marie. Jamie Langenbrunner's having his jersey and number, lifted to the rafters in Peterborough later this year. You find events like that and you try and apply a league presence to it. But then as you get out of World Juniors, as the OHL trade deadline passes, the gap between that when your players get the national spotlight with TSN at the World Juniors to the beginning of your playoffs is really when we start to ramp up things. the biggest part of my travel every year comes in the OHL playoffs. We split up our communications team. There's one comm staff member, one digital content person in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference with our conference finals. Then we all come together for the league championship series and then off to the Memorial Cup after that. So that's my biggest time on the road, which is late April through May into early June. I spend a lot of the month of May on the road, and then you're at the NHL draft, you're at the prospects event, you're at other marquee events as the season goes on. The U17s, for example, are in Sarnia this year. We'll have a presence there. World Juniors are in Ottawa. We'll have a presence there. It's about finding spots and picking marquee events out across the calendar where you can say, hey, I've got the opportunity on this charitable night to showcase that story, but also this player is on the visiting team and I can collect some content of them while they're in the building. So it's about trying to see how many boxes you can check in one visit and make the most of your time in the rings.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Definitely lots of travel, and definitely don't envy the WHL guys either with the amount of travel and long road trips out west. But I think that's an awesome overview of your current role there, Jordan. I want to dive back in your career a little bit here. You mentioned being into your 30s now. You went to Ryerson or TMU for the sport media program there. Talk to me about your experience with the program there, coming out of that, the opportunities, the networking, and the skills that being in a program as well known as that kind of allotted you and your takeaways overall.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about opportunities from that program, it's the hands-on stuff. It's the opportunity to work
Yeah.
with instructors that are working in the industry. When you're working in a program that's got it's so small but so big at the same time. Like the alumni list that's come out of the radio and television arts program at Ryerson's huge. So getting opportunities. I found myself, my first year, you know, spending some time with our in-house athletics program and working on webcast and storytelling, and that's kind of my you know first foray into working in Ontario in sports. But
Yep.
beyond that, you've got an instructor that knows people that work at this place. I mean, I freelanced at CBC, Sportsnet, and TSN throughout my time while I was in university. I think you're always going to get opportunities as a student, especially when it comes to part-time work and freelancing. I think it's a lot easier sometimes for someone to say yes to you when you're a student to come and try something out because they can remember what it was like when they were a student and they were trying to try things out. I mean, when I came to school when I was 20 years old at Ryerson, I thought I wanted to be, the next play-by-play voice of some NHL or NBA or NFL team. But quickly changed to learning, how much I like the storytelling aspect and having my hands at the controls a little bit more of the production and
Yeah.
the actual concept to completion instead of just adding my voice as a part of it. I mean, you're going to learn what you like by trying everything. I don't think it's fair to shoebox yourself in, especially in a landscape that's always changing. I talk about having the full toolkit of skills, and I think a good part of that is that I was able to try so much while I was in school, try so many places and so many different roles. I mean, I could have told you that if you had talked to me 10 different times throughout my time through university and fresh out of it, I think I could have told you 10 different careers that I wanted to have. And here I am now working in junior hockey, which I don't think was any of those 10 that I would have thought during my time through university. So it's really cool to have the opportunity to try so much out and then be able to essentially bring all of those, things I've tried together and make a roll out of it.
Yeah, no, that's a fabulous answer, and I couldn't agree more with trying as many different things as you can while you're in school. I think a lot of times when I'm sitting down and talking to students, they say like, "Oh, once I graduate, I want to try this, I want to try this." No, do it now. Try it while you're in school,
Yeah.
while you have those connections, you have those opportunities. A lot of times you have that free time while you're in school still that you may not have while working a full-time gig or otherwise. But Jordan, I think there's been a bunch of good advice and insight along the way here. But for somebody to wrap this conversation up, for somebody who wants to be like you, wants to go through Ryerson or TMU, end up in a position like this, what advice or kind of guidance would you give somebody who just graduated or looking to start their full-time career?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about, reaching out to people while you're a student. I think, specifically, talking about my role in junior hockey, I think our teams are always looking to build out what they're able to do. I mean, I can think of, so many teams in our league that have added new roles the past
Yeah,
few years, especially in the digital content space. I mean, when I started, I don't think there might have been one or two teams across 20 in the Ontario Hockey League that had a staff videographer, that had, an employee that was focused on digital content instead of a comms manager that
yeah,
was also on the radio, that was also filming warm ups to post to Instagram and Twitter from their phone. Now there's specific roles for that. And while they might not be full time salary or hourly wage positions, it might just be come shoot a game for us, we'll give you X amount. I think reaching out to, if you're in Ontario, OHL clubs, if you're out in Western Canada, the WHL or the QMJHL, and just trying to go get some access and your hands on. I mean, if you look back at some of the content I was producing when I started with the league in 2018, I would laugh at it now compared to what I'm able to do, and
yeah,
it looks better because I'm able to do more. So I think junior hockey is a great space. I can see people that have, since I've been with the league, have started with teams, started out part time, turned that into a more full time role with the team, and now today are working in the National Hockey League with NHL teams doing similar jobs. It happens very quickly. One moment you're here, and then you don't hear from someone in a couple of years, and then you run into them at an event, and you go, "Oh, you're here now. I haven't seen you since you were here." There's a lot of opportunities to really get involved, and the access that you're going to get at the junior hockey level is always going to make your content stand out a little bit more. You're able to
yeah,
go supply these OHL teams with digital content, but at the end of it, you're also able to put a reel together for yourself, and then you're able to go out to job openings and say, I've worked in this space. I understand storytelling when it comes to hockey. Here are some examples of my ability to tell stories. And they're always going to be good stories because of the access, because of
yeah,
what you're able to do without the full media circus following a team from city to city to city. You're able to try some stuff out, get some ins with a team, create a relationship there, and next thing you know, you'll be at the next level in the next
yeah.
day.
No, that's a great answer. And I think to piggyback off that, I mean, obviously a lot of this conversation's been focused on major junior, the OHL, the CHL. But I think, guys, a good takeaway there as well when you say, Jordan, working up to the next level, don't be afraid to reach out to your local junior A, junior B, junior C teams as well to build that initial reel and demo and get those at bats first. There's nothing better than coming to an OHL team saying, look what I did for the last 6 months for my local junior B team. That's the best way to kind of stand out and dip your toes into that OHL, CHL environment, right?
Or even a little bit younger. I mean,
Yeah,
something that's huge to us in the OHL every year is our priority selection, and,
yep,
finding digital content. Like, I have met so many talented creators at the U16 level. Kids shooting their friends sometimes
yeah,
playing hockey and posting it on an Instagram page. The amount of people and friends that I've met from that world. And some of them are working in the league now. Some of them are working beyond the league now. But it started with them, you know, making a small investment if they know that they want to play with a camera and create
yep,
content about sports. But I mean, that's applicable to, it could be your minor hockey team, it could be your high school team, it could be, there's so many
yep,
teams that this digital world of sports, like, everyone looks at it and says, I want that on my team. And there's always going to be a need for that, the way that people consume sports now, especially in a world where people can't go out and stream every single game or watch all your games on TV. If you're able to create high level production about something that you might not think is important, somebody else might think it's important, see who did it, and then instead of you reaching out to teams to say, hey, I want to work with you, next thing you know, you were shooting your 15-year-old friends, and 2 weeks later, you've got another team reaching out to you, say, how do I get that for my team?
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's the power of social media and just getting those at bats and putting your examples and your previous work out there. I think, like you said, it happens so often, and you may not realize that when you're first starting out your career, but just getting those at bats, go film your local team. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the skill level. Hockey's hockey. If you can prove that you can story tell and film it and capture it in a cool light, it'll be applicable to somebody else. And last question I wanted to ask there, Jordan, in terms of advice, I've shifted to giving a little bit more resume advice for people starting out their careers as well. I know you guys have had some job openings recently with the OHL, with the CHL. Any resume tips or advice, things that you look for in the video and digital type of roles?
Yeah, I love a little reel or something where I
Yeah.
can see some. I mean, it's one thing to say I can make graphics, I can make video. It's really easy for me to open an email sent for a job opening and then click on a link and see it right away. One I'll shout out, Gondola is a great
Yes.
platform that, I mean, I use it for to keep my reel up to date. It's overdue. It's quite dated at the moment. It's one of those things that I'll get to it when I get to it. But
Next off
you know
season.
the exactly. But that's one where you're dropping links from things you're creating on social media, and somebody can go and see everything you've done, and you can drop links from people you've done work for, and then you can see clients or different people that have shared your work. And I just I think that it's one thing to say I can do this. It goes 10 miles further when you can look at me and say I made this, and I look at it and go, I want someone who can make that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a perfect answer. Gondola is a very underrated tool for people looking to start out their career. So, guys, be sure to check it out. And if you've done any work, graphics, video, or otherwise, it's a great spot to house it. But, Jordan, this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for your time here. I know the season's back in full swing for you, but if people have any questions, where could they reach out to you for questions or advice?
Yeah, I mean, there's an email address for me on the OHL staff contact page, jhenry@chl.ca. You can find me on Twitter as well, and all those platforms. There's a LinkedIn for me as well. If you want to reach out and connect with me, Jordan Henry on LinkedIn, send me a message. Again, one of those things that I might not respond to as you send it, but I'm usually pretty good within a week to check in that website and getting back to anyone who's got questions there. So if you ever got questions about maybe not just opportunities with the OHL itself, but teams in the OHL. And if you want to find someone at the team level to reach out to specifically, more than happy to help anyone get their foot in the door and start working in hockey.
Awesome. That's perfect. Well, Jordan, thank you again for the time here. Good luck with the season. I'm excited to see some of these marquee events this year. Need to get out to some games. And guys, be sure to like and subscribe the Working in Hockey podcast. We'll see you next week.